less than 10 seconds.
Hey everyone, Michael Unger here from the HR MacMillan Space Center. And today is May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. It's Star Wars Day. And to celebrate, we're delving into the science of Star Wars. And we have a really special guest from Industrial Light and Magic, which is a company which does a lot of the background, the visual effects for these movies. And we're joined by Mike Jutan, who is a experienced designer and research and developer for Industrial Light and Magic. He has worked on Rogue One. He's worked on The Mandalorian. And we're super excited to speak with him today. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, good. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Happy Star Wars Day.
Thank you. Thank you. May the 4th be with you.
Oh. You are an experienced designer and R&D, research and development. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about what that entails?
Sure, absolutely. So as I said, or as you said, I'm at Industrial Light and Magic, which is the visual effects division of Lucasfilm. So Lucasfilm, you know, as in George Lucas, the developer of Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Industrial Light and Magic is the company underneath of Lucasfilm that George Lucas started really to make the visual effects for the first Star Wars movie possible. So it's a really amazing company from the late 70s. Was when it started, and the company has been running for just over 40 years now. And it's really interesting the kinds of work that we do. So I'm an R&D engineer, which is essentially a fancy name for a computer scientist. I work very closely with a bunch of artists, and really the word artist is kind of not quite the whole picture. These people have lots and lots of different skills. They're not just artists. They don't just draw. They also have computer skills. They might have started as like artists in clay or in drawing or as photographers. And now they're kind of technical artists, maybe is a better word to use. They're people with many different interesting skills. And so they are essentially my customer or my client. I write software for them to help them make visual effects. And so that involves a lot of design, discussion, trying to figure out what visual problems they're trying to solve, what kind of new types of special effects they're trying to create for a new movie. And I work with a team that writes computer software to help the artists achieve that artistic vision.
Awesome. Could you maybe give us a bit of an example of one of those interactions that people could maybe like go back and rewatch and maybe say, oh, I get what that means now?
Sure. So I think something very interesting is what we're in the middle of right now, which is working on The Mandalorian, a TV show on Disney Plus, which I bet many of the people watching this have seen.
Absolutely.
Including myself about 1,000 times. So The Mandalorian is not only an amazing story, and everybody loves the child, Baby Yoda. It not only is an exciting kind of different look in the Star Wars world. Perfect. Yeah, I see your ears are perked up. Yeah, exactly right. So not only is it kind of an interesting new look in the Star Wars universe, but there's some really exciting and interesting technical things happening behind the scene. So there's some great YouTube features that we've recently released that show some of the behind the scenes work that's happening on The Mandalorian. And in fact, actually May the 4th, right, today, releasing on Disney Plus is something called the Disney Gallery. It's going to be an 8-part series of behind the scenes of The Mandalorian. So there will be a section there on the technology itself that people should look out for. So what I do as part of the research and development team for The Mandalorian, I'm coming up with new ways for artists to work in this kind of new way of working. So how it's set up is we have this giant curved LED screen. It's about 75 feet high, 75 feet wide, 25 feet tall, something like that. It's huge. It's got a roof on it. It's got big curved walls. It's like the world's most giant round television, basically. But what we're doing is we're projecting computer-generated images onto this LED wall system. And it's not just a video playback. It's not pre-recorded material like you might see at a music concert, where you have the musicians playing, and in the background is maybe some video of them and some like little funny dancing animation things flying around. Those would be pre-recorded typically. So this is actually, instead of 2D content, this is actually 3D content. This is a full 3-dimensional scene that we're creating. And then we're motion capture tracking a camera. So the camera that looks through, actually the scene moves and is regenerated, is re-rendered on the fly, so that the perspective from the camera is correct. And that opens up a whole new world of filming possibilities and an ability to actually travel to many, many different worlds without ever leaving a soundstage.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Mike, maybe you could take us back. We'll take off these ears for a second. You could tell us a little bit about your background and where you started. What kind of schooling you went into to finally end up here making these fantastic worlds in The Mandalorian?
Oh, okay, sure. I decided very early on that I had to do this. Basically, I was 10 years old, and the movie Terminator 2 had just come out. This was in 1991, 1992.
I remember.
Yeah, it was so good. And my parents wouldn't let me watch it. They said, "Oh, it's too violent. We don't really want you to watch it. There's too many like stabby alien things." Like, which is a very good parenting thing to do, to tell me not to watch such a thing. But I ended up, I was on, my parents are from South Africa, so we were actually in South Africa visiting for the first time. I was with my cousins, and my parents were talking with some aunts and uncle in the back room. It turned out that Terminator 2 was actually on TV, and so they were busy for a while. So I started watching it, kind of under the hood. And then when they found out what I was up to, I said, "Don't worry, it's edited for TV." So I managed. They said, "Oh, okay." So I finally like convinced them to let me watch it. I think maybe a year after it had come out. And for anyone who's seen it, for anyone who's interested in visual effects, it's an amazing, that and the original Jurassic Park from 1993. Both two films were made by Industrial Light and Magic so many years ago, and have really withstood the test of time. The visual effects, the artistry, just the quality and the way that the visual effects are integrated into the movie is truly astounding. And to me, those two films not only launched my interest into this as a career, but also I think are still shining examples of how best to use visual effects. So with the kind of that armed in my brain, the idea of the melting T-1000 and is, coming up through the checkerboard floor and then totally wasting some guy, is awesome. Those images were so amazing, and they really stuck in my mind. For the fellow Canadian audience here, a lot of the software was actually developed in Toronto, Toronto and Montreal. So I didn't know that growing up. Sort of fast forward another, maybe 6 or 7 years from then, I was about 16, 17, and I'd heard on the radio actually that there's this company called Alias Wavefront in Toronto who developed software called Maya, 3D animation software. I was like, wait, that's made in Toronto? I thought that would be made in Los Angeles. There's no way. And so I was like amazed that actually Softimage, 3D Studio Max, all of these famous programs are actually all created in Canada, which is amazing. So that then became a real mental focus for me. My interests in school were math, were computers. I was sort of glued to that from an early age. I knew I wanted my career to go that direction. And so when I started looking, I was one of the, I'm going to age myself now, I had a grade 13, an OAC. So back in my day, high school was 5 years long.
Right.
So in grade 13, not 12, I started, deciding which universities I may be interested in. And I ended up at the University of Waterloo's computer science program. And so that's a really interesting program because it blends work and school back and forth. It's called a co-op program. So you do You start with 8 months of school, and then you do 4 months of work term, 4 months of school, 4 months of work term, 4 months of school. You don't get any summer breaks, but then you get a job at Lucasfilm, so it's worth it. So really my interests drove me going into computer science, but also drove what companies I applied for these co-op terms. So I actually ended up at Alias Wavefront right at the beginning, just very through amazing chance and dedication and good luck and good timing. Just sort of a great confluence of things. I actually ended up at Alias Wavefront right at the beginning of my work terms. I was working on the Maya 3D software and actually building those skills, complementing them with the skills I was learning at university. I was actually building those kind of skills you really need in the workplace, teamwork, collaboration, all of these other things that are like real keys to long-term career success. That led me to a job at Pixar Animation Studios in California, and then ultimately to ILM, where I am now.
Wow, who would have thought that learning about math would have eventually lead you to Baby Yoda?
yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, he's all just a bunch of ones and zeros, you know? It's really kind of cool and kind of crazy. There's some really exciting careers that can come out of the sciences like that, you know. What's interesting is really there's, I think, an interesting for I think young folks to know if they're interested in a career in visual effects or in movies. It's not about being found, you know, about being discovered like an actor. You know, that really is in a lot of cases can be you know, a very lucky situation, and there's a lot of great actors that are never really found, shall we say. It's very different and a lot more straightforward, I think, to end up in the visual effects kind of industry. It's a lot more of the classic things of hard work, dedication, focus, learning the kinds of skills you need to learn. But something I think that's very interesting is that something I was nervous about at the early stages is I saw the beautiful artwork, the beautiful visual work, and I thought, I'm not really a good artist. I don't know how to draw. You know, maybe I'm like okay at photography, but I can't like really sculpt very well. My drawing skill, even my penmanship is terrible. I was like, I don't know if I'm, you know, if this is a career I'm going to be able to get into. But the interesting thing is really there are multiple paths into this career. There are people that are purely artists that went to school for sculpture or for drawing or for photography. And there are people that are totally on the opposite side, went to school for physics, for chemistry, for engineering, for computer science like me. There's also this kind of funny sliding scale where you have pure art on one side and pure science. Most of the people in my work are kind of on the sort of gray scale in between somewhere. There's some people who have a bachelor's degree, say in architecture or something sort of visual, or something visual, visual and technical, or have a basis in some sort of science, but then they may have a master's degree in fine arts. The right. Same person, which I didn't even think was possible, to have like not left brain or right brain, but to have both brains. Yeah. Like these people are really geniuses, and they have the ability to sort of synthesize both worlds. So those are the kind of technical artists that I talk about that we work with very closely. There's really skills on kind of both sides. It's very interesting.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So yeah, you have such a diverse team that you need to utilize all these different skills. And of course, like you're able to go someone that has those artistic skills to kind of problem solve. I find that really fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's bring it back full circle here, and we'll come back to my world, which is looking up at the stars and thinking about space. And of course, Star Wars eventually led me to my passion about space. So for you, you now work in the Star Wars world, out in a galaxy far, far away. How has your perspective of the universe changed now that you are working in the Star Wars universe?
It's a great question. You know, I think, let me see. I think my brain jumps to two kind of different universes inside of Star Wars. the first thing I'm thinking about is the city of Jeddah from Rogue One, which is an amazing movie that I really
I love it. Yeah.
really loved. I've also seen that about 1,000 times. I actually got to work on the set for that, which was insane, and so like really a dream come true. So I was there as the director was crafting how the camera would fly through space as Jeddah was exploding. The Death Star had shot a beam into it, and the planet was exploding or imploding, and the heroes are trying to get out. Remember, I think it's Cassian and K2SO are in the ship, and they're trying to get out of this rubble as it's like crushing, like waving over top of them. So the scene with Saw Gerrera, I really found that very powerful. So my mind is jumping to that. And also my mind is jumping to, in episode 9, there's this like sand planet that the heroes go to, and there's some sort of like festival of the ancestors or something.
Yeah.
They're like dancing, and Rey gets like some sort of shell necklace thing, and everyone's just joyful. Of course, they're also about to be exploded. I think, right? If I remember correctly. I don't know why my mind is jumping to this. Maybe because we're all kind of, we're all in this world of this crazy pandemic right now, and I'm sort of thinking about all these people who there was this joy and this kind of teamwork and sort of shared fate amidst kind of a complicated and stressful situation. And you see these people really joyfully celebrating and remembering their history and sharing that with other people. I really like that kind of like common humanity that's shared. And those are two very totally different areas of the Star Wars universe, but you have that kind of commonality of like of support and of leadership and of teamwork kind of amidst kind of a dangerous and a scary time. So for some reason my brain is jumping there, but those are two memorable things for me.
No, that totally makes sense, because I think in astronomy, quite often, the more we look out into the universe, the more we learn about us, about our planet, about humanity. And it's like, even in the Star Wars universe, as we look out into that universe, it has fictional characters, it's still coming back to us and our humanity. And I think that's really the heart of Star Wars and what makes it so special and what keeps us coming back watching it for more and more.
I think so too.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us on this special day, the Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you.
And to you.
And everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.